Check out FlipsideGaming.com for all your gaming needs. Use the promo code HEROES to save 10% on all orders over $10. Hey there, this is John from Heroes and Legends. Welcome to another edition of the Magic the Gathering Market Watch. We're going to look at all aspects of the secondary market as we do every weekend, but you will notice as we go through today's video, Pioneer is the big headline. Not too surprising, the Star City Games Invitational is occurring this weekend. And this is the first time we're seeing the Pioneer format played on a grand stage. So a lot of casual players now are getting more involved in the format. They're seeing some of these decks. They're seeing some of the card interactions. As you will notice, a lot of the Pioneer cards continue to be hot. Quickly though, fast reminder, if you go to FlipsideGaming.com, you can use the Heroes promo code, save yourself a little cash. Also support the channel at the same time, which is always appreciated. So thank you. But without any further ado, let's get into it. We'll begin with Standard as we always do. This time we'll look at the top 8 Standard legal cards that have lost value this week. Number 8 is Arclight Phoenix, down 89 cents to 1854. So I always point this out, but it's good to know that in the Arcane Tempo Challenger deck, they did include a copy of this card. So there are more copies of this out there compared to other Guilds of Ravnica mythic rares. With that being said though, I'm still surprised this card is going down this week. It has been going up recently, so maybe this is just some stabilization, normalization going on here. However, the reason I'm so surprised is because the Iza Phoenix deck is looking very good in Pioneer. Seems strong so far also at the Invitational this weekend. And this does see Standard play as well. The Iza Phoenix deck is still a viable option and maybe will become more viable perhaps after Monday when there's a banned and restricted list update. The assumption being Oko most likely will be banned in Standard. Maybe the Phoenix deck could even be better. Also, there's that Drowned Secrets variation of the deck that can perform well from time to time. This is one to keep an eye on. Number 7 is Siege Mastodon. This is the one from Core Set 2020. You can only find this particular copy of the card in the White Welcome deck, which is one of the 5 welcome decks they give to new players at game stores for free. So that's why these prices have been really weird. Finally, this does go down though. Down 104 this week to 192. So some of these are starting to stabilize if you are somebody that likes to collect oddities. Number 6 is Veil of Summer. It goes down $1.07 to $16.16. Sees tons of sideboard play, especially in Standard, but also sees play in Modern, even Legacy. However, the reason it is soft this week is because on Monday, it did get banned in the Frontier format, so you can't use this card there anymore. Number 5 is Hallowed Fountain, but this is the original one from Dissension. It goes down $1.12 to $26.78. These original Shocklands, they do move a little bit back and forth, so this could just be normalization. This does see a ton of Standard play, Bant Ramp, Azorius Control, Esper Dance, Jeskai Fires builds, and more. Modern, this is a key part of a lot of important decks there. And now with the Pioneer format also using these Shocklands, overall, I do think there's going to be a little more demand on them in general, but this one does go down a little bit this week. Keep an eye on Hallowed Fountain, especially maybe in the coming week or so, because Azorius Control decks are performing pretty well, at least so far, at the Star City Games Invitational. Number 4 is Breeding Pool, another original Shockland from Dissension, down $1.17 to $25.49. It is good to look at these original versions of cards sometimes because they are typically harder to find in good condition, and they could be forecasting what other variations of the card could be doing. So why would Breeding Pool start to soften up considering how much play Simic has seen not only in Standard, also in Modern, Pioneer? Well, because with a lot of things happening and a lot of buzz around these banned and restricted list updates that are coming up, people are a little shy about buying into decks, especially powerful ones. Oko has been dominant in Standard. Very, very high probability on Monday that's going to be banned in the format. I don't think that means the Simic colors or Bant colors are going to be bad necessarily in the future in Standard. It just means people want to wait and see. The other big question mark for me is Pioneer, because if you look at the Star City Games Invitational, at least so far, those Oko decks are looking pretty good. Basically, what they do is they run Oko, a bunch of Mana Dorks, and then Oko turns the Mana Dorks into 3/3 Elks. But if that deck does too good this weekend, Monday, maybe they just go ahead and pull the trigger and ban Oko and Pioneer too. Ultimately, Breeding Pool is always going to be a huge part of mana bases, Standard, Modern, as well as Pioneer. But right now, we're seeing a little softness, at least in this copy. Number 3 is Hydroid Crisis, down $1.44 to $27.90. This isn't seeing a whole ton of play so far in Pioneer. Part of the reason it is soft has a very high price point considering it sees play in Standard. And the decks that it sees play in are going to be changing if Oko does get banned on Monday, at least a lot of the core ones. So because of that, this card is going to stay soft. I do think this is going to lose more value before it stabilizes. but I am confident that it will still be good in the standard format. Number 2 is Questing Beast, down a little this week, 257 to 2469. This card is still doing very well, though. Granted, a lot of Throne of Eldraine products are being open right now, so there are a number of copies always being released into the marketplace from week to week. You do have to take that into account. And also, there is a little bit of nervousness about cards that play well alongside Oko, but this thing's an all-star with or without Oko. Right now in Standard, this is in Simic Food, Golgari and Selesnya Adventures, Gruul Aggro, Simic Flash, Temur Super Friends, and more. Pioneer, Mono Green Devotion, which has been very strong, Simic Stompy, Modern, The Rock, Vintage even. You'll find this in survival decks. This is another card to watch long term. Number 1, Oko Thief of Crowns, down 631 to 31.99. And you can guess why this is, obviously. Like I said earlier, looks pretty clear that on Monday this is going to get banned in Standard. So that's part of the reason it's this soft. Also, chance that it could get banned in Pioneer. If not this week, maybe in a future week. It does feel like at some point, as they start to ban cards and Oko starts to look better and better, that could very well happen. Some people have even speculated that maybe this will get restricted in Vintage because it's looking really good there too. So right now, people don't really want to pay a premium for this card because they just don't know what's going to happen to it. Okay, let's move on to the top 6 Standard cards that have gained value this week. Number 6 is Pelt Collector. It goes up 58 cents to 402. So not a big climb here, but percentage-wise, actually, it's not too bad. You'll find this in Gruul Aggro decks and more decks right now in the format. And, of course, if things change after this Monday, Gruul Aggro decks could get better. This is also in some big Pioneer builds like Hardened Scales, Gruul Aggro, and more. Number 5, Cavalier of Night goes up 58 cents to 715. This is a fantastic card that a lot of people haven't paid close attention to because everything has been all about Oko, right, in the Standard format. So if Oko does go away, a lot of decks that run this could get better. I'm thinking about things like Golgari Adventure, Rakdos and Mono Black Sacrifice, Rakdos Knights, Mono Black Aggro, and others too that are in the format. Additionally, this sees a tad bit of modern play. Many times you'll find a single copy in those Golgari Yawgmoth Cord decks in the main. Number 4 is Brazen Borrower. This goes up 65 cents to 1540. Again, not a huge increase, but definitely saying something when you are seeing a new card from Throne of Eldraine, even though all those packs are being open, going up in value. And what this is saying is it's seeing a ton of play. In Standard, Simic Ramp, Temur Reclamation, Azorius Control, a lot of the Flash builds will run it, and many of those decks are still going to be good if Oko goes away. Pioneer, many times you'll find this come out of the board for Izzet Phoenix. Also, those control builds, some of them will run it, and they've been looking pretty good recently. Modern, you'll find this in Izzet Control, Izzet Spells, Azorius Tempo, Legacy, Grixis Dreadhorde Delver, and more decks there. This is showing up in a lot of places. Number 3, Mystical Dispute, goes up $1.08 to $2.32. This is an uncommon from the new set, so this is really saying something. Seeing play in a ton of places, in Standard, Food Ramp builds, Temur Reclamation, Azorius Control, Esper Dance, Fires builds, Izzet Flash, and more. You're going to find this in Modern, Grixis Death Shadow builds, and others there. This has quickly become a favorite sideboard option. Pioneer and Legacy players appreciate this card too. Number 2, another original Shockland. This time we get Steam Vents from Guild Pact, and this time it's going up in value, up $1.35 to $23.80. Seeing a lot of Standard play right now. Temur Reclamation, Jeskai Fires builds, Izzet Flash, Temur Super Friends. But I think the real story here is Pioneer. This is in the Izzet Phoenix builds. There's actually 2 different kinds. The one that's doing a little bit better right now is the one that has Arclight Phoenix, which is a little more traditional, many times runs Thing in the Ice. The other version, though, that's out there runs other Phoenixes, including one we're going to see on a list in a few moments. But regardless, this is in both of the builds. In Modern, this also sees a ton of play. Number 1, Vivian Arcbow Ranger up 1001 to 1997. This card is really taking off this week. It's been hot for a while. It's been simmering. We've talked about it week after week. Ever since Mythic Championship number 5 a number of weeks ago, this card got attention on it. It got hot, and it's continuing to stay hot and get stronger. So why is that? Well, again, potentially this card could get even better if Oko did leave the Standard format, perhaps. But right now, it's seeing play in Simic Food, Golgari Adventures, and more. But Pioneer, again, I think is the true story here. You're going to find this in those Mono Green Devotion decks, which have been very strong, and also sometimes in Hardened Scales. Okay, let's move on to Pioneer. With the top 6 Pioneer illegal cards that have lost value this week, what you're going to see here are some cards that maybe just went up a little too quickly. People overestimated how good decks or certain cards would be, so you're starting to see some retraction already in the format. Number 6, Thassa, God of the Sea, goes down $1.30 to $22.05. Now, this card got super hot a couple weeks ago because there was a mono blue tempo deck that a lot of the pros were very high on. The deck hasn't really taken off and put up the big results some people were anticipating. Because of that, it has gone down in value already, and unless something changes, this could lose a lot more value. Number 5 is Saheeli Rai. This goes down $1.52 to $9. So this is one of the cards that kind of got hit by a banning. When they banned Felidar Guardian a couple weeks back, well, obviously copycat decks were no longer going to be a thing in Pioneer. Originally, this card was super hot because those copycat decks had a very strong start in the format. This does see a little modern play still, but not all that much even to warrant the $9 price tag. This will lose more value. Number 4 is Mox Amber, down $1.58 to $22.13. I do think this could stabilize down a little bit more. I'd be surprised if it goes much below $20 though, honestly. It is seeing play in Modern. You will find this in Paradoxical Urza builds and Urza Outcome, also Kethis Combo, which is starting to kick around a little more. And this sees a little Pioneer play, but I do think it could see more in the future. Obviously, this has seen more Commander play ever since Emery Lurker of the Lock has come out. So this is one of those cards that over time, as more cards join it, could become more and more powerful and could find more places to show up. So this is one you want to keep an eye on long term, no doubt. Number 3, Nexus of Fate, goes down $2.08 to $20.66. This is from Magic 2019. It was the buy box promo. It can only be found in foil. This had a pretty big spike last week due to the fact that within the Pioneer format, a lot of the Reclamation builds were looking pretty good. This week they have fallen off a little bit, so the card does come down. It will probably come down more over the coming weeks unless something changes there. This does play a small role in Modern too. Number 2, Jace Vryn's Prodigy, down $2.66 to $47.61. This card spiked aggressively when the Pioneer format was announced a few weeks back, and a lot of people just speculated that it should be great there. It was good in the old Frontier format, so why not, right? And yeah, it's doing pretty well. Various control builds are running this, and it does show up in some other places in the format. This also sees Modern play too, but I do think it will go down more before it finally stabilizes, just because that initial spike was so dramatic. Number 1, very similar story here with Liliana the Last Hope. This card just took off as soon as the Pioneer format was announced. This week, though, it goes down $2.95 to $54. I do think it will lose a little more value before it does stabilize. Again, this is looking pretty good, though, in Pioneer. You'll find this in control builds in the format. In Modern, you're going to find this in a lot of decks there, too. Mardu Shadow, The Rock. Additionally, this can show up quite a bit in Legacy and even gets a little Vintage play, too. Okay, on to the top 11 Pioneer legal cards that have gained value this week. With all the excitement around the Star City Games Invitational, people are seeing the format played for the first time on camera on such a big stage. So obviously there's a lot of excitement around certain cards. Let's see what's happening. Number 11, Gideon Ally of Zendikar, goes up $1.96 to $17.08. Before the Pioneer format was ever mentioned, this card actually was starting to get hot because of Commander. Sir Gwyn, Hero of Ashvale, was a card a lot of folks were trying to build night decks around, and this was a perfect fit. However, this card got even hotter because of Pioneer showing up in Azorius Tempo, Spirits builds, Humans, and more. See some Modern play and a little Legacy play too. Number 10 is Supreme Verdict. This is the one from Return to Ravnica. It goes up $2.07 to $12.20. This is in Azorius Control and Tempo builds in Pioneer, and so far, especially the Control builds are looking good this weekend. Additionally, this is a huge Commander card. Also sees Modern play in Azorius Control, Stoneblade builds, Rainbow Nimb Mizzet, and more there. Sees a little Legacy play too. Number 9, another card seeing additional play because of Pioneer, Kozilek's Return. Actually, pretty big percentage jump this week, going up $2.20 to $5. This is a card found in the new Is It Phoenix deck. Also, the Teamer Field of the Dead decks will sometimes run this, and other decks in the format too. Modern, you'll find this in Mono Red Blitz and some other places, and this even sees a little Legacy play from time to time. Number 8 is Mutavault, the Morningtide copy, going up $1.42 to $14.40. Magic 2014 going up $2.32 to $15.19. This is great so far in the Mono Black Devotion Vampire deck. And that deck is looking pretty good so far this weekend at the Star City Games Invitational. You'll also find this in other builds, though, in the Pioneer format too. In Modern, this will show up in Merfolk and other places, and Commander players, if you're playing Tribal, you're going to want a copy of this. Number 7 is another card looking good so far at the Star City Games Invitational. It's Field of the Dead, up $2.68 to $11. This is a card that has been getting hotter and hotter over the last few weeks, even though it was banned in Standard. Partially, I thought some of it was speculation that this is just going to be a solid card in multiple formats, but it could also be because of Pioneer results showing up in a number of decks, including Greenfield Ramp, Azorius Control, Bant Field of the Dead, Temur Field of the Dead, and more. Modern, this is showing up in important decks like Amulet Titan, Titan Shift, Sultai Control, and yep, even Legacy and Commander players are using this card. Number 6, Dragonlord Ojutai. This goes up $3 to $11.78, and yes, this is showing up in some of those Pioneer control builds. Number 5, Thoughtseize. Theros goes up $1.65 to $30.25. Lorwyn up $1.65 to $39.50. Iconic Masters up $3.08 to $34.57 this week. Okay, so we know this card is a Modern staple all over the format. Also shows up in Legacy, sure, but this is all about Pioneer this week. Originally, when Pioneer was announced, this card spiked pretty heavily, especially the Theros copy, which was really lagging behind the other ones because there's a lot of copies of that particular one out there compared to the others. However, it did slow down over the last few weeks. Like a lot of the decks that were performing well weren't necessarily running a ton of Thoughtseizes. That does look different already this weekend, though, at the Star City Games Invitational. One of the decks that is performing the best right now at time of recording is the Mono Black Aggro deck, and that does run 4 copies of this. Number 4, Izzet Charm. Check this out. Return to Ravnica up $1.21 to $2. Dual decks, Izzet versus Golgari up $1.72 to $2.39. Guilds of Ravnica is a guild kit up $2.61 to $3.37, and Modern Masters 2017 up $3.11 to $3.75. Huge percentage jumps around this card because sure, it has seen a little Modern play from time to time, and even more recently, it has seen increased Commander play ever since Elsha of the Infinite came out. But again, this is all about Pioneer, in particular the Izzet Phoenix builds, the Arclight Phoenix one as well as the other one I mentioned earlier. This has seen play in other places too in the format, but this weekend at the Star City Games Invitational, this is getting some camera time, and you can see the results here. Number 3 is Pithing Needle. This is the one from Magic 2010. It goes up $3.94 to $8.99. And this has been a big Modern, Legacy, and Vintage sideboard card for a long time. But now you have a whole new format that can use it being Pioneer. Because of that, it sees a pretty big increase this week. Other copies of this card have been going up as well, but this is the one that moved the most this week. Number 2, Rekindling Phoenix. We haven't seen this card in a while, but it is back with a vengeance. It goes up $5.70 to $9.39. And much like Arclight Phoenix, there are additional copies of this out there because the Lightning Aggro Challenger deck had a copy of this in it. But regardless, the card is super hot this week, and it is because of Pioneer. That other Phoenix deck I mentioned, not the traditional Arclight Phoenix build, but the other Izzet Phoenix deck, that deck is running this. This also shows up in Mono Red Devotion and some other builds. We'll have to see how this card performs long term in the format. If it does well, it could go up quite a bit more. Number 1, Kalidas Trader of Geth up $6.85 to $28.70. This card has been increasingly hot over the last few weeks. This is in control builds, Mono Black Aggro, and Mono Black Devotion Vampires. These are all decks performing well so far at the Star City Games Invitational. Also, this sees Modern play in Grixis Control, 4-color Snow Control, The Rock, and more. Speaking of Modern, let's move on to the top 5 Modern legal cards that have lost value this week. Couple things going on right now in Modern. The first is there's a lot of people nervous about it because of the Pioneer format. And I'll say this, I think Modern is going to be just fine. Maybe there are less people playing it in the future because there's another option out there with Pioneer, but it doesn't suffer from the same problem that Legacy and Vintage has, which of course is the reserve list. As long as Wizards can keep up with reprinting some of these cards to keep them at least relatively affordable to a big portion of the market, then I think the Modern format will be just fine. Now, another reason the format could be soft this week is because we got an announcement that there's going to be 121 foil cards put into these mystery booster packs in March when they go to game stores. These foils will not be any of the almost 1,700 cards already reprinted in mystery boosters. You're going to get a foil in every pack, and the concept is these should be pretty highly sought after cards, at least generally. If that's the case, it does make people a little bit nervous about buying an expensive Modern card right now because more copies could be entering the marketplace this spring. So put it all together and you're going to see a number of cards losing a fair amount of value this week and not a lot of cards going up in value. At least not a lot of Modern cards that are not legal in Pioneer or Standard. If you are a Modern player though, this might be a good time period to pick up some cards that you need. Number 5 is Dark Confidant. This is the one for Modern Masters. It goes down $3.27 to $61.73. Now, this card did see a little bit less play in Modern ever since Run and 6 came out. That could be somewhat true in Legacy too, but it is still seeing play. You're going to find this in Jund, The Rock, and more in Modern. Also does continue to see Legacy and even Vintage play. Number 4 is Snapcaster Mage. This goes down $3.63 to $60.75. This is the one for Modern Masters 2017. And this is another card that sees plenty of play in the format. Death Shadow builds, Control builds will run this and more. Legacy and Vintage, you'll find this card there too. Number 3 is Ether Vial. This is the one from Iconic Masters, going down $3.93 to $30. You'll find this in Humans, Merfolk, Goblins, Spirit builds, and more in the format. Does see some Legacy play too. Number 2 is Ren and 6. This goes down $4.40 to $75. This card sees a lot of play, but the price point, considering you can still find packs of Modern Horizons very affordably, it just feels too high. This will lose more value. You do find this in Jund Death Shadow, Rainbow Nib Mizzet in Modern. Also in Legacy, this will show up in Temur Delver, 4-color Control, 4-color Leovold, lands, and more. And yes, this does see Vintage play as well. Number 1, look at this, Jace the Mind Sculptor. Masters 25 down $3.51 to $121.34. Eternal Masters down $5.27 to $116.94. World Wake down $10.02 to $122.97. This card has been trying to find its price point for a while now. We've talked a lot about it on the Market Watch. Ever since that dramatic increase that we saw when Stoneforge Mystic was unbanned in Modern, this card has been going down. Sometimes it goes up a little bit, then down some more. Considering everything that's going on, I'm not too surprised to see such an expensive card soften up like this week. It could lose a little more value before stabilization, but I do think ultimately you'll start seeing this creep back up in the coming weeks. There's just too many players out there that want this card, not just Modern players, but also Legacy, Vintage, Commander, Oathbreaker, etc. Okay, let's move on to your top 6 Modern legal cards that have gained value this week. Number 6 is Omnith Locus of Mana. It goes up 65 cents to $21.30. Not really moving because of Modern, but it's really hard to find too many cards moving because of Modern this week. This one, though, is a fine Commander card. It has seen more play recently with Omnith Locus of the Royal, and also with the Great Henge and Castle Garenbrig coming out. There's a lot of folks building green Commander decks right now. Number 5 is Sword of Light and Shadow. This is the one for Modern Masters. It does go up 85 cents to $55.99. This card was losing value recently. It is stabilizing and normalizing back up a little bit right now. And yeah, this does see some play in Stoneblade builds in the Modern format here or there. See some Legacy play too, but it's a great Commander card regardless. Number 4 is Damnation from Planar Chaos, going up 87 cents to $32.99. Not a huge increase here, but it does see a little Modern play in like Grixis Control, Dimir Mill, and other decks in the format sometimes. Also, this is a huge Commander card. Number 3 is Vivid Marsh. This is the one from Commander 2015, going up 96 cents to $166. This one's a little weird, not moving because of Modern, but it's a fine Commander card, obviously. However, it does feel like some of the copies of this card in certain supplemental products are drying up in the marketplace. Maybe it's just a wacky targeted buyout, maybe it's happening naturally, but I thought it was worth noting. Number 2 is Mox Opal, the original one from Scars of Mirrodin, up $1.31 to $101.70. This card has been very soft recently after a large spike a few weeks ago. Now it's starting to stabilize back up a little bit. I always say about this card, it feels like it wants to be $105. It will go a little lower, a little higher, but it always seems to return to around that price point. And here you go, it's happening again. You're going to find this one in Urza builds right now, Affinity, Hardened Scales, sees Legacy and Vintage play too, of course, and has seen increased Commander play with the release of Emery Lurker of the Loch recently. Number 1 is Chalice of the Void. This is the original again from Mirrodin, going up $1.46 to $59.99. Another card that has been soft recently. The percentage of play has been down a little bit recently with this card, but still sees a ton of play, and you're seeing the rebound here in the price. Eldrazi builds will run this, Merfolk and other decks also sees Legacy and Vintage play as well. Okay, onto the Vintage Spotlight. This is where we talk about cards that see play in Vintage, Legacy, 93, 94, or cards that are important to collectors. I do want to point out, though, much like we see a softness right now in Modern, there's a pretty big softness when it comes to some of these Vintage cards right now, too. So if you are thinking about picking up certain Vintage cards, watch the market closely. I think some of them could go lower, actually. And if you feel like the price is right for you, you might want to pull the trigger. Now, part of the reason this is happening, too, could be that Star City Games announcement from a little over a week ago, where they did say they were going to start phasing Legacy out of some of their big events, because now they do have the Pioneer option to go to. Since then, I have been seeing a lot of the big stores dropping buy list prices when it comes to Vintage cards. Maybe it's a coincidence. Maybe they just have all the inventory they want right now. But it could be tied in, at least in part, to that announcement. One card that is going up this week, though, is Mana Vault from Unlimited, going up 11.39 to 129.19 this week. Unlimited cards have been hot. Not as hot this week, but this one continues to climb. And this is a great vintage card, also a fantastic commander card. Next, we have another Unlimited card. It's Tundra, one of the dual lands. It goes up 75.15 to 646.98. This is on the reserve list, but it did get printed one more time and revised. And Mox Ruby, also from Unlimited, also on the reserve list. It goes up 539.49 this week to $3,074.98. The reason for this jump has been some higher grade copies out there in the marketplace this week. Okay, on to the Commander Spotlight. Now, even the Commander Spotlight is pretty slow right now, although a lot of the cards we saw earlier in the video were moving in part because of Commander 2. First, we have Food Chain up $1 to 41.46, and this does see a little legacy play, but I do think the movement here is more because of Commander. This has always been a huge combo enabler in the format, but recently it has seen increased play in Corvold Fake Cursed King builds. Maze of Ith, the original one from the Dark, goes up $1.32 to 26.98. This is a great legacy card, great commander card, but not too long ago it became unrestricted in old school 94, 95, and 96, which led to this card heating up a little bit. Archangel Avacyn, this goes up $1.51 to 6.99 this week, another one we haven't seen for a while. And I threw this one on the commander list because it can be a good commander card. Recently it has seen some increased play because of cards like Kalia Zenith Seeker. However, you probably can guess Pioneer is really driving this one. You'll find this in Azorius Tempo, Azorius Spirits, and more. Next we have Last Chance from Portal. It goes up $1.55 to 16.27. And again, we have a situation where there's a Portal card kind of drying up a little bit in the marketplace, harder and harder to find these in good condition. So this one jumps a little this week. This card hasn't necessarily seen increased play or anything like that when it comes to Commander, but I have seen occasionally this run in Commander decks that care about extra turns, and they run ways to nullify the drawback. Okay, on to the Pauper Spotlight. Merchant Scroll from 8th edition up 11 cents to 4.50, and this continues to see play in Inside Out combo. Also sees some legacy and vintage play too. Next is Grey Merchant of Asphodel. Theros goes up 18 cents to $1.50. Commander 2014 up 65 cents to $2.16. This does see play in Pauper Mono Black Control, but again, we have a card here that's probably really moving because of Pioneer. You're going to find this in the Mono Black Vampire builds. Okay, on to the Premium Spotlight, and like I say every week, I don't like to spend too much time on foil cards or rare promos, because sometimes you just can't find good data online. If there's not enough sales, you might get some misleading data, and sometimes that data can be manipulated. But I do like to find a card that is moving naturally with the market. And this week I chose Vivian Arcbow Ranger. This is the foil copy from Core Set 2020. It goes up $10.91 this week to $25.09 for the reasons we mentioned earlier. That wraps up the Market Watch for this week. There is a lot going on, obviously, with Pioneer prices. I'm sure there's going to be a lot more twists and turns along the way. If you are interested in Pioneer card values, I would stay close to the market this weekend and early into next week, as I'm sure there's going to be more movement due to the results of the Star City Games Invitational. Until next time, though, hey, thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and have a great day. Hey, thanks for watching. This video is made possible through the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Check out the description below for links to our Patreon page, as well as our Amazon affiliate store, where a small percentage of all sales will also help support the channel. Finally, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the new videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a great day.